I'm making this up. Improv lessons for developers. That's what it says. I'm Dwayne. I work at Pantheon. I'll get back to that in a second. But I live and work in San Francisco. I've been an improv producer and actor up there since 2010. I love it. I don't do improv enough. I mean, I'm in the mecca of improv in Chicago, and I'm so happy to be here. Other things I like: comic books, karaoke. Anybody that was out last night? Yes. Good times. Doug Van closed down the karaoke last night. Survived me. If you want to get a hold of me, you can reach me on my email, or I love Twitter. If you could all tweet this would be amazing. Hashtag and MidCamp. And all of my slides and all the info about me that you never need to know, including a blog series I wrote to back this talk up, are over on mcdwayne.com. So, quick plug for Pantheon. I'm assuming most of you all know who Pantheon is. Who raise your hand if you don't know Pantheon? Exactly. So, we're hosting and we do awesome automation stuff. Like, we're doing mind-melting stuff for the future. So, come talk to us. We have t-shirts left. But that's me. There's less than 30 people in this room. So, I'm going to point at you. You're going to say your name. And this is going to get used to being participatory because most of this talk is participatory. Not most, but some of it. So, you are?
Chris.
From?
Boston. Doug. Chicago.
Andy, Ann Arbor.
Susan, Oak Park.
Kyle, Chicago.
Solon, Washington, D.C.
Doug, Indianapolis.
Anna, Chicago. Manning, Oak Park.
Drew, Minneapolis.
SF, Minneapolis.
David, Champaign.
Matthew, Champaign.
Roy, Indianapolis.
Nice. Nice diverse crowd. I did this talk in Iceland and it had 6 different countries represented. So I'm still trying to top that. That's, I don't know, a little bit more about you. But today is definitely about engaging. And we'll be getting up and moving around later. And there's Tim from St. Paul. So why the heck are we talking about improv? Here's why I think we're talking about improv. Because this sums it up very well. You have to be able to roll with the punches, whatever comes out next. But I'm very curious, why do you guys think we're here talking about improv? Why did you come to a talk called We're Making All of This Up, Improv Lessons for Developers? Anybody? I won't like point at you and make you say it.
Well, I've also thought a lot about how the improv community and the open source community have a lot of overlap. So I just want to see what you can say.
Cool. Anybody else? Any other thoughts on why? Doug?
I make a lot of stuff up.
No doubt there. We all are. But here's why I think, and this is the only slide I'll read verbatim if it comes back. I don't know. It's been glitchy all day, they said. There it is. This is the only slide I'll read verbatim. Creativity is not the clever rearranging of the known. Creativity is a state that allows us to touch the unknown and bring it into the phenomenal world, to make the invisible visible. The unknown is a territory that holds all possibilities until it is revealed. The act of revealing, that is creativity. And if that doesn't describe web development, I don't know what does. Written by someone in the 1940s, republished in the 60s, Viola Spolin, the mother of American improv, the way we think of improv theater. She said this, but we take ideas that people will draw on the back of napkins or in Photoshop and say, yes, I can make that functional PHP code that executes on a server somewhere. Welcome. So why am I talking about that in developers? Other than what I just said there, that I think it really actually describes it, I spend a lot of time in both worlds. And I noticed a lot of parallels. Both stage improv and development use these best practices stretched over frameworks. In the improv world, we have formats. You have short form, like Whose Line Is It Anyway? You have the Herald, Laurent. There's thousands of long form formats or frameworks. And he shares his best practices of make the other player look good, yes and, all that. And much the same we have don't repeat yourself and good security practices and stretch those over frameworks of CMSs and servers. At the end of the day, everything we do is completely unique. Every single time. Even if you're cloning the site and changing content out, you're still changing content out. And there's a new set of challenges for that different customer than there was from the last one. It takes all kinds of teamwork to do this. We're always standing on the shoulders of giants. Even if you're developing by yourself in a darkened room, we wouldn't be here without Linus Torvald. Probably not. And at the end of the day, after 2 drinks, you cannot tell the difference between a WordPress developer, a Drupal developer, and a Joomla developer. And after 3 drinks, you can't tell anybody apart, like no matter what they're doing for a living. I want to pause and go back here because I realized I forgot a very important part. So this is talking about creativity, but where does it say improv there other than my word at the top? Improv is just an adjective, and that's a very important point here. Improv is just an adjective that means without a script. It means the act of creating, and that's why creativity is important to this whole thing. That's why I'm showing this quote. We're doing all of this without scripts. Maybe we're running scripts fine at the end of the day to make the machines do things, or that we're writing, or practicing what we're going to say. But day to day, we're putting those efforts together. So how this talk is structured for the rest of the time we're in here together, folks, is I'm going to walk through 7 key improv principles and how it applies to the stagecraft, and then talk about how I think it applies to development best practices. And then we will get up and do some improv together, and we'll apply those practices. And then we'll wrap up and go home. Well, at least to another session. So, Tina Fey, probably everyone in the world knows this about improv. If I was to poll the room, in fact, I stopped polling the room and saying, what do you know about improv? Because I got tired of hearing people say this. It's this thing I'm going to start with because it's the obvious. Yes and is the core building block of what we think of as stagecraft improv. It is, we're going onto a blank stage with no props, with no special effects, and we are going to create a realistic world. We're going to build everything on top of each other. And how we build that is the agreement of yes and. Yes is, I acknowledge this thing happened, and I'm going to build on top of it and say something else. Tina Fey, actually, I'm using as an example because in her book, Bossy Pants, she actually uses this great example to explain it. If you have 2 improvisers on stage, and one holds up their hand and says, I got a gun, and the second player says, no, that's not your gun, that's your hand. Well, you've wrecked the scene. You have completely knocked legs out from your team partner, and you got to start over. If you just say, yep, you got a gun, you acknowledge that, yes, there's a gun there, but what have you done? You've put your hands up. You've added nothing. You've added literally nothing to the scene. Now it's back on the first player to have to make that work. Even worse than a no is a yes, but. Yes, but it's not loaded. Well, now you've created a problem. Now you've said, I've taken your idea, but I've modified it so I feel safe around it, that I'm okay with it. But if you say yes, and this is her example, I got a gun, it's like, yeah, stop waving your Christmas gun around. You're always waving that at people. Why? What? That's a whole world right there. Like, what's a Christmas gun? What's the relationship that these two have that one's always waving a gun around and the other person's not scared of it? There's so much you can dig into there. And there's so much you can do with it. So what does this have to do with development? Who here has ever worked with a client or a stakeholder on a project and they come up with a terrible idea? First, everybody? Okay, good. We're all on the same page. And who has said, no, that's a bad idea, and immediately got into an argument, even though you're clearly right? Yes, everyone in the room, yes, all the nods. You can raise your hand, folks. It's participatory. People have egos, and people's egos get bruised very easily. We're very frail creatures. Having someone tell you no means you're wrong, and, well, you're going to get defensive. That's just human nature. So an example I like to use is if a client says, I really need to put a picture of my dog at the top of every page on my website, and the background color needs to be green, like neon green. If you just say, no, that's a terrible idea, which it is, they're going to say, well, my idea needs to have merit. I thought it up, so I have to be validated as a human being that I said this. Now they're going to argue. But if you say, yes, I acknowledge the thing that you just said, and we need to do a scoping call, and a new budget for this, because we got to figure out which pictures of your dog. We have to figure out which color green. You have 3 hours tomorrow. You said yes, you've added to it, you've built the world that you're going to have to inhabit, and now you've given them stuff that they have to do something. Back on them, like, okay, are you ready to actually engage with this process? They might not. They might, but it buys you time, if nothing else. It doesn't get you to a fight. Same is very true internally. If you're working on a project with anyone else in the company and you say, no, that's a terrible idea, you're going to be a terrible person to work with. If your boss is constantly telling you no, then, well, that's not a great working relationship. If they say yes, and we need to do more research, and we tried this idea last year, and here's the data from when we did it then. Well, you've built more information there and avoided a fight. Anyway, I'll quit harping on yes and. It's the basic. Starting with the obvious. This is deceptively hard because we start with the information set in front of us. In improv, the scene starts as soon as the lights come up, from the audience perspective. If I say, I'm going to start an improv scene right now, and I just started doing a scene, you would have to assume everything I did was true, and everything was true in that world, and that was reality. If I was a beginning improviser, and I did this a lot as a beginning improviser, you tend to find the scene. And if you've ever seen a student improv show, you see this a lot, where you see like 3 or 4 lines of dialogue, something happens, and then they find an idea, and they start playing with that idea, and that becomes the scene. And everything they did before gets thrown out the window. And at least for me as an audience member, I'm like, well, what about that information? What about those things you just said? Are we ever going to deal with that? Are we going to come back? No. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. But to the improviser, their frame of reference, the scene started when they found the scene. For the audience, it started as soon as the lights came up, as soon as somebody was on the stage. It requires seeing what's actually there. So, development, how many people have ever gotten a ticket and immediately like, oh, I know how to fix that and get in and like never step back and like, well, what's the actual history here? What are we actually trying to do? What's the larger picture we're trying to solve? Where did this even come from? Who filed this? What was the project this got discovered on? Because that's all obviously true to the ticket and the world itself, but not to your frame of reference. So pulling yourself out of, well, from my point of view, we start from here. But globally, no, here's the real starting point. Here's all the information I should have had. Who here ever asked clients? I should have asked that earlier when I was asking you. Who here works with in clients as a developer, like delivering projects for people? Great. How many people work with internal stakeholders delivering stuff? Great. Everybody else does something else. Great. But who here asked when a client asked for something? You say, okay, well, tell me about the last few developers you worked with. Can you describe your process you worked through the last project? Anybody? That's the obvious for them. You're another developer in a string of developers, and if you don't have that frame of reference, then how are you going to know what's going to work? How are we going to know how to work with them? How are you going to know how to make them happy? Start with their obvious. The obvious. Actively listen. Human beings have been communicating for way longer than we've had language. So most of our communication really isn't words. If it was, we'd have standardized on IRC or Slack and be done with it. Most of our communication is body language and emotional content. On stage, this is super important because I can say, pass me the pitcher of water. And I can say that several different ways, like pass me the pitcher of water, which means something completely different than, oh, pass me the pitcher of water. Completely different things. If my scene partner only hears the words, man, that's going to be a terrible scene because they're going to interpret it from their way, and maybe that'll be interesting, but it won't be engaged. We won't be listening to each other. You guys are very fortunate if you're from Chicago. You have TJ and Dave here, 2 of my favorite improvisers on earth. You can go see them, I think, every Wednesday at 10. They start every show with, trust us, we're making all of this up, and then they just look at each other. And then they start the scene. And they're fantastic shows because they're, one, starting with the obvious, what's actively there, and they're actively listening to each other. They're saying, what is the body posture telling me? What's the facial expression? What's the attitude they have? Why would they have this? They're questioning the world behind that, but they're actively listening to what each other do. Development world. Who here only works over email effectively? Like never gets on a phone call, never gets in a face-to-face? Yeah, nobody. If you can get in the same room with someone when you're delivering any kind of news, proposal, idea, you're going to get immediate feedback that you can't get from just words. You're going to see what parts scare them, what parts they're excited about. You cannot gauge sticker shock from an email. There is no way. If you're throwing blind proposals over a fence, you're doing it wrong. Demand a face-to-face, demand Skype or other services better than Skype, GoToMeeting or Zoom. Zoom's awesome. Zoom's near real time. But see them, connect. He's a human being working with another human being. End of the day, we're delivering code, but we're doing it for people. John Remack's not a well-known person, but he is my favorite improv teacher maybe of all time. And he gave me this awesome advice when I was taking classes for the first time. Start your scenes happy, healthy, well. In the development or the improv theater world, you see a lot of conflict, especially beginning improvisers, especially people that are not great at the craft, because everyone rushes to conflict. If I said, Chris, we're going to do an improv scene, I guarantee you we'd be in a fight in the first 6 lines of dialogue. Because that's naturally how it happens. No slight on you. That's just everybody. Because we think of drama, we think of conflict. There must be a winner and a loser here. That's boring. For a few reasons. One, imagine you walk into Starbucks or your local chain of coffee and see two people in a very heated argument. Who do you root for? You have no idea. You have to sit there and process it, and you have to do a lot of thinking to which side should it be on? And it builds an anxiety in you. As an audience member, this is exceptionally true. The more anxious your audience is, the worse time they're having, unless you're trying specifically to make them anxious, which is really hard to do. But if you start the scenes and you see two people that are really getting along, and you get to see them, oh, I like these people, I like these characters, I'm engaged with their world, and then they get into a conflict, that's awesome. That's the best. Those are the best scenes. But if you see two people just going on an adventure, and these two people are really happy, healthy, and well, and they're fighting the world, those are the best scenes in shows you'll ever see. So the development side, and I'll admit this is the most hippy-dippy of all of the translations. But who here codes well when they're angry? I've yet to meet that person, but I know they exist. They have to. Who here codes well when they're really sick and occupied with 1,000 things in their head? Yeah, exactly. But how many people actually do that, though? I gotta get this done. I gotta get this done. Sometimes you can't help it, but give yourself a break. Give yourself some time to meditate. If you saw Tessa's talk earlier today, there's awesome apps for this. Give yourself a few minutes to reset, go for a walk, find your happy, healthy place where you can work, and reset yourself. This is also true of working with your team. If you start Scrum mad at everyone at Scrum, that's going to be a bad Scrum. If you start a team meeting where you just got done yelling at one of the people, man, that's going to be bad. Take some time, admit it, acknowledge it. Get to a place hey, we got to admit this. We got to get to a happy place before we're going to be able to move forward as a team. Looking at time here. Quick 30-second or minute side note. Charles Darwin never said this, but this is the most famous quote. If you look up Charles Darwin quotes, this is one of the first things that always comes up. Leon C. Megginson said this in 1963 at a talk where he was summarizing Darwin's work, and nobody knows who Leon C. Megginson is. So if anyone ever doesn't recognize your work in the greater scheme of things, don't worry about it, because you get the message out there. That's the important thing. Anyway, back to the normal process here. Serving the piece, not the form. On stage, there are these formats I mentioned earlier. Laurent, deconstruction, the short form games. The Herald is the classic. It was invented here in Chicago. Actually, it was invented in San Francisco, then imported to Chicago. Where it's a group game to open up to explore an idea, 3 scenes, another group game where you explore the ideas you found in the first scenes, 3 more scenes that relate to the first 3 scenes, and then a big group game at the end, maybe some more scenes, whatever happens, to tie the world back together, back to the original idea. That's the format. And student shows of the Herald are painful to watch because they're so in their heads about, I have to do this, where are we, did I have done that? How do I tie that idea to that idea? And they're just really in their heads up there. And it's painful to watch because you want people on stage to have a good time at an improv comedy show. And people forget that, I'm here to serve the audience. I'm here, throw the form out the window as soon as it's no longer fun. Start doing whatever's fun, because that's what the audience came to see. You have to serve the audience, which is there to see the piece. They don't care about the Herald. They never do. They care about if they had a good time. In the improv world, or the development world, we get into a habit sometimes of, I have to do it this way because that's the way it's best done. That's the way it has to be done. And I'm glad you're here, Tim, because actually, you say it very, very well. We get to a habit of saying this is the best practice is if it's the right way to do it. And what we really mean by best practices, it's the really good idea way to do it based on the information we have. And we can have many good ideas, and we can change the information out. And you don't have to be wrong at any point. Your idea can be good, my idea can be good. So that's when we have best practice. But we shorten it to best, and we get into fights over it. Like, my favorite example to pick on is two-factor authentication. I love two-factor authentication, but if you have a client that has a blog about their dog, and you force them to use two-factor authentication to log into the admin, eventually they're going to stop logging in. Eventually they're going to find a new way or a new person to work with. Even though that's the best possible practice, but you didn't serve the piece. It's like, do they really need two-factor authentication to update their dog blog? Probably not. They didn't want it. They didn't want it, and you shoved it down there. And there's a lot of other examples I could throw out there, but don't force something in the hole because it's the best way to do it. It's the absolute way to make the form happen. Serve the piece. Michelle Gracie actually says it really well as well. She says, the best developers have very strong opinions held loosely. So be able to let go of those ideas when it don't quite serve the piece. All right, Del Close, local legend. This goes back to yes and, making the other player look awesome. That is your job on stage. There's an award they give out in Chicago called the Jeff Award. And it's an improv award for exceptional work in the field of improv. And the first person who ever won it said, well, I must have not been doing my job because you recognized me as the person who did good. It's very true. No matter what happens on stage, it's your job to support and make the other players look awesome. This has the best translation to the dev side of the world because if you write code, your comments in that code are not for you. They're for the next person that uses your code. If you're writing support docs, they are not for you. They're for 3 generations out of people that have to dig back through the documentation to figure out how to support your code. If you can make them look like geniuses on the first try, you're doing it right, because they are going to look awesome if your code is elegant. I know it's a WordPress example, but one of my friends, Bama Designer, is her GitHub. You can go look at her PHP code, and it is beautifully documented. I can tell you what every line of PHP does. And it's wonderful, and I feel smart reading it. And using it's pretty easy as well. But I feel like I got made look good from her work. So make your users look awesome. Think about them. And last, but definitely not least, accepting failure is part of the process. We're gonna fail. We're human beings. We're not ever gonna get it right the first time, anytime. On stage, there's actually a beauty to that. But the best gifts come out of the mistakes, just embracing the failure that happens. Saying, oh, we messed up? Okay, that's the new thing. That's real now in this reality, and we're just going with it. And the reason it's awesome and successful in stage improv is because you're on a stage. And there's a lot of safety to that in and of itself. I have no doubt that the person with the sword on the other side of the stage isn't going to really kill me. They just have a sword on the other side of the stage. Even though they're swinging it crazy, because that's part of the show we're watching. In the development world, we have that same safety in a thing called stage, development environments. So accepting failure means go ahead and break it if you got a safe place to do it. Don't break production. Don't update your modules on live, just raw. Don't copy code. But why not just try update all? Why not? If you got a safe place to do it, why not just try that idea instead of whiteboarding and like looking through it? Just like try implement it. You got a safety environment. Just go do it. Because the bigger the error, the easier it is to see what went wrong. The bigger the problem, the easier it is to pinpoint where the actual issue is. It's the intermittent problems that are the real problem. But you have to be able to mentally accept failure. The bigger part of this, rather than just interacting with code, is accepting failure as part of the process with your teams. Being able to put out ideas that might be wrong. And this goes back to the yes and. This goes back to fragile egos. Being able to say in a team meeting, like, no, this is my idea. I'm sticking to it. And I'm putting it out there. Not just, I'm going to talk to them after the meeting. Or maybe I should write a comment on this somewhere. It's like, no, I'm going to present these ideas and be bold with it. And I might be wrong. And accepting that if I'm wrong, oh, okay, that's part of the process. Don't have to defend all of your ideas. to the death just because you thought of them. Accepting failure is part of the process. So, that's it for the 7 points. Now I'm realizing I should have changed the slide from earlier. But now that I've talked at you for a good 25 minutes, we're going to get up and do some stuff. So everybody stand up. Oh, and some couple warnings here. One, it will get loud in here. So if you have a problem with really loud noises, no offense if you leave. If you don't feel like participating and you want to sit in the back or on the sides, that's totally cool. Not a problem at all. Up to you. But we're going to do some improv here. We're going to do a couple exercises. But before we do that, we're going to get a little bit loose and get used to like saying stuff. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions you're going to answer at once. So what's your name?
Yeah.
Where are you from? Where you work? What's the color? Where'd you go to high school? What's a good year? Great. What's Social Security number? That's a good one. All right, so we're going to play 2 exercises, and we're going to do this. So first exercise is called I Love. It's very, very simple. But first, before we do this, we're going to find a partner to work with. So everybody finds some other person to work with in the room. If we have an odd number, I didn't count, someone to work with me. Otherwise, just find a person to work with. Doesn't matter. Should have Benny Hill music going. All right. We all got partners. Oh, you got partners. Go over with me. Unless you want to. I can force you if you don't want to come up, but you can work with me if you want.
Or you want to go with Doug and
In fact, we're going to demo this real quick. The entire rule set to this game is you take turns and you say the words I love and then say something that you actually love. I love Doc Martens.
I love Renner's Pizza.
I love a really good burrito.
I love walking on a cloudy day.
That's it. That is the entire game. Go!
I love reading. I love my kids.
I love doing this talk.
I love getting drunk about I love walking along the
I love walking along the bay in San Francisco.
I love getting to drive on the open road.
Wow! That's interesting.
Trying stuff out in my house when I'm trying to get
Figuring out what I'm trying to get to. Another 30 seconds. Keep going.
makes the clouds look
So now I'm gonna get everybody. We're gonna form a big old circle. We're gonna cut through the chairs to do it. But you come this way, Chris. Yes, we'll go around. Not all the chairs, maybe. Maybe we can duck in between them. But no, this is fine. As long, no, this is actually perfect. This is perfect. I didn't plan any of this. I'm literally making this up as we go along.
Improv, right?
So first, before we do anything else, how was that?
Fun.
Good.
I loved it.
Fun. Loved it. Thank you.
I learned some things.
Anybody thought that was like hard?
Yeah.
But why is it hard?
I ran out of stuff I love.
No, she got it. You had to think what you actually love.
Yeah.
And yet, I think it's not just that. I think it's you have to think of something and be vulnerable with it to say it out loud. Now, it can be something as mundane as I like really good new shoelaces, or I love ice cream because who doesn't love ice cream? But the more you do this, the more it comes out. So we're going to do this in a big group, and do this popcorn style, as they say, which means there's no order to it. Like we're not going to go in a row, and if you don't have anything, don't have anything. But we're just going to shout it out. Try to keep eye contact around so you know if somebody else is going to be speaking. But we're just going to go. So let's go. I love giving this talk.
I love popcorn.
I love puppies.
I love corgis.
I love golf.
I love non-technical sessions.
I love bourbon.
I love sunshine.
I love the color of the shirt.
I love biking.
I like local vodkas.
I like what kind of buckets?
I love food.
I love wine.
I love open source.
I love port.
We'll see.
All right, we're going to stop that for the sake of time. How does everybody feel?
That's easier.
No, I don't think it is.
But, but just how do you feel in general?
Nice.
Like, anybody feel nervous or anxious or terrible right now?
Yeah.
You feel terrible, Roy?
Not terrible, just anxious.
Anxious, sure, because we're doing this thing and revealing. But overall, does everybody feel kind of good? Because you got to talk about something that you love.
I do.
You got to share something that you love. And you even did it earlier. How many people had the strong urge to say, me too, at least once or twice? It's overwhelming. We have so much more in common than we don't, and we rarely spend time acknowledging that or talking about it. So spend time with your team, spend time with your clients. Like, maybe not playing I Love, it's a great game, but like connecting with them. Like, what's things you like? I probably like those things too. We could talk about things we hate, but man, that's just a spiral. It goes terrible. But talk about things you love, and now we're all connected. And that's kind of the point of this: is one, happy, healthy, well, because you're really going to feel better, and two, it connects you. Like now we're actively listening to each other. Like if you were like really that anxious, I hope I'd have picked up on it, Roy. So we're more active. So we're going to do another exercise, and the slides are out of order, so I'm just going to call it without putting it on the board. But this is another we're in the same place doing the same thing exercise. It's called Pass the Clap, and this works like this. So we're going to look at each other, and we're going to clap at the same time, or try to anyway. And then you turn to him and do the same thing. And just keep the turn. All right, now we're going to do multiple of these, but I'm going to start this one first. No, keep going. So it's the same game. Nothing changes from your end. Except now I'm going to start the second one. That was hecka silly, but as a kid saying California hecka silly, but we're in one place. We did one thing. We did one thing successfully as a group. I don't know what other session successfully did a thing as a group other than the yoga one. Like, awesome. But we succeeded. Congrats. Like, doesn't that feel awesome? It's silly, but we just did something together, and each of us did an individual part. And that's so important on a team, that you have to play the part to do the thing, and nobody's doing it alone. So that's a really, really fun one to do if you're just in a circle of people and just want to have fun. You can play all sorts of variations on it. All right. The thing we'll end with is we're going to play two versions of this game called Shared Memory. And this is a game also known as Remember Mexico, and that's the version we'll play. So everybody find another partner to work with, because you're going to do this in pairs first. So find a partner, somebody to work with. Could be the same person, could be a new person.
True.
All right, mix it up. Doesn't matter. Okay, good. We got our pairs. We got our pairs. We got our pairs. So remember, Mexico works like this. This is a yes and game. This is a game of literally learning to say yes and actively listening to the thing that was just said. We're going to build an entire story. We're going to build a memory, a shared memory of the time we went to Mexico. So you're going to say, hey, remember the time we went to Mexico?
So you say that?
You say that now.
Hey, remember the time we went to Mexico?
Yes, and we got all those donkeys. And then you say yes and.
Yes, and it was interesting walking along the beach in Acapulco.
Yes, and we found all those shells.
Yes, and weren't there some of those trees that had fallen over? It looked like from a hurricane.
So that's how this goes. So that was great. You can't be wrong as long as you start the sentence yes and. That is the rule. So you're going to build a silly memory of going to Mexico, and so one person in the group raise your hand. One person. Okay, you're the person that says remember Mexico. Remember the time we went to Mexico. That's it. Go. Remember the time we went to Mexico. Yes, and we had to take that cab from the airport all the way across town.
I remember that some of the streets weren't as clean as I would have expected.
Yes, and we saw that garbage down, and those guys weren't even trying to fix it.
Yes, it was interesting how some of the people figured out ways to try to clean up instead because it wasn't working.
Yes, and those kids had the best idea. They made that trash monster robot.
Yes, and I was interested to see how they kept up the
Yes, and remember they explained how the rubber band
Yes, and I remember they were talking about getting a monster wars.
Yes, and we saw one of the monster wars, and they had it at the big bullfighting arena.
Yes, and it was amazing how many people actually came.
All right, that's it. Stop. Yeah, turn it back. All right.
That was awesome.
Back to you. So real quick, how was that? Was that hard?
Yes.
A little bit, because you're inventing a story. But it's not, the rule set's not hard at all. It's just, and you can't be wrong. You can't be wrong with stuff. These stories only worked because we built on the thing immediately before it. If you came into the story thinking, I'm going to tell the story about the time we went to Mexico and bought a bunch of guns and ran a bunch of drug cartels out, but Roy's saying things like, and we got all those puppies. Like, there's no way I'm going to force that story in there. I have to be adapted to the thing that was last said, and I have to acknowledge what he said, and I have to respond the way that he said it. If he was scared about it or over enthusiastic about it. So we're going to play this one more time. So I want everybody to find a different partner. So since we're already in a circle, everybody can just face the other way. You work with a new person. All through this. All right, wait. We're going to play a different version of this. Because I think this actually has real applicable skill to the real world. So instead of remember Mexico, so everybody raise your hand, like one person raise their hand is the person who's going to start. You're going to say, remember that time we debugged that Drupal module? That's it. All right, ready? Go. Remember that time we debugged that Drupal module? So yes, Symphony to do it because there's a complete. Thanks for playing, man. Thanks All right. We don't have any more time. So go back to your seats. Go back to your seats. Go back, sit down. Come on, first of all, give yourself a round of applause. And two, did anybody figure out how to debug a Drupal module doing that? Probably not. But playing that for 2 minutes beats standing in front of a whiteboard and beating your head against it with your team and being angry at the code? Yeah. When you get stuck with a problem, I do this all the time. It's like, remember the time I solved that? Remember the time I actually got done with this? Remember the time I did that? Yeah, I remember that and I did this. And I start working backwards. And I figure out, well, there's a path. Maybe it's not the right path, but it's at least a path. Beats hanging out and beating my head against a keyboard. So what did we cover? And build on what was there. Start with the obvious. Actively listen to what's going on for reals. Live happy, healthy, and well. Serve the piece, not the form. Make other players look good. Accept failure as part of the process. I have a whole blog series that gives exercises that relate to each one, or just Google search. There's 1,000 articles out there about how yes and applies and games you can play. But that is my time. For further reading and listening, go see these people. TJ and Dave are here in Chicago. You have the chance to go see them. Sharon Halperin runs the IO Theater. That's still up and running. And Viola Small's been dead for years, so sorry. And the bottom book actually has nothing to do with improv, other than I based an entire improv course on it back in San Francisco. It's a book about understanding how people react to things, affects how people. Face only does 9 things. So if you learn how to read that, you can read people very, very well. Again, all these slides are over at mcdwayne.com. You can get me on Twitter. Happy to talk to you about Pantheon or literally anything else on this list. And questions in the 2 minutes we got left. 3 minutes.
No questions, but it was amazing.
Oh, that's great. That's not a question.
TJ and Dave, who you talked about, what theater is that?
Oh, they are at the IO.
Okay.
IO Theater.
That's an open cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just look up TJ and Dave Improv, and they do. It's a $10 show, Wednesday nights at 10. They've been doing it for years, and it is worth every penny. If I'd have got in a little bit earlier this week, I would have gone and seen them. Other questions? Thoughts? Anything?
Yeah.
Doug?
I said earlier I love non-technical sessions.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the hardest one to top for the rest of my career.
Did you see Project Management the musical last year?
No, I didn't.
See, that's the only reason you're saying that. And this is going to be a DrupalCon. So definitely go to DrupalCon and check out Project Management the musical. It's bleeding me away. The reviews are amazing. All right.
Thank you, Dwayne.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.